Good morning, Meteorologist Mike Linden coming at you live from the MyRadar studio here in Orlando, Florida. Of course, we are talking about Tropical Storm Elsa this morning. It can't seem to decide what it wants to be. Overnight last night, in fact, late last night and into this morning, it was at one point a Category 1 hurricane, but it has since weakened yet again to a tropical storm. It is approaching the western coastline of Florida, already lashing central Florida and the west coast of Florida with heavy rain. Of course, storm surge continues to be a big threat to the west coast of Florida, and as well that inland flooding, definitely something that we will be talking about a lot more here in the coming days as this passes over Florida, Georgia, South and North Carolina. Again, if you are watching across our various social media platforms, let me know in the chat where you are watching from. If you have any questions, I will get to them. But first, I want to start off with a look at the MyRadar app. I've got that opened right here in front of me. You can see the center of circulation is right about here. You can turn on the wind layer, mind you, by tapping on the layer menu in the MyRadar app, going to winds, and you have two options. The surface winds, which goes without saying, are the winds at the surface, and then 500 millibars, so the air upstairs, the jet stream. The example I like to give, if you're familiar with like a puppet, like a marionette puppet, the jet stream are like those winds way up there. They're essentially the puppet master controlling what's going on down at the surface. And you can have a variance between the winds at the surface and the jet stream. It's certainly worth looking at, especially when you're dealing with severe weather and the development of tornadoes, which we will get to in a moment as well. But I've got also the track and the cone here turned on from the National Hurricane Center. That is a premium feature in the MyRadar. Oh, looks like we lost the MyRadar app there. Hang on one second. I will restart it here in our connection with the streaming here. Of course, this happens right at the start of our stream here. Damien, I think you might have to restart things on your end there because it doesn't want to connect here on my end. But I will give this a quick restart. So as we are waiting for that to restart, we can take a live look at the weather right now on the western coastline of Florida, courtesy of our partners from WeatherStem. We have two cameras to show you this morning as those rain bands of Elsa start to slam into Florida. We begin in Cedar Key, Florida. Here, this is pretty much where Elsa is expected to make landfall today. And you can see the camera kind of jumping in the winds a little bit there. One thing I should point out that there are power outages in this area, so I don't know how much longer we're going to have this camera for. It certainly happened in the past where we've looked at the cameras and we've lost them in that exact moment. But as of now, not going to make any jinxes there. Let's jump over to Horseshoe Beach. This is nearby to Cedar Key, Florida. And this is going to give us another look here at Elsa as it works its way inland. Damien, I think I've reconnected here the app for what it's worth. Yeah, I think so. But again, looking at the WeatherStem camera there, you can see that it still looks somewhat calm, but it is certainly very wet. We're not seeing a lot of activity out on the water this morning, which is good. And if we jump back to the app here, you will see again that those rain bands, Elsa in and of itself is a very not exactly a symmetrical storm, right? You can see on the western side of this, it's really not too much, right? There's the center of circulation there, right off the coastline of Cedar Key, as we just saw. But the bulk of the precipitation, most of the energy, is on the eastern side of Elsa's structure. So not a super well-structured storm. Bear in mind, it is early July. We're not in that time of year when you start to see those really photogenic storm structures being built out here. Nonetheless, you see the layer that I have turned on here. This is the Hurricane Tracker layer. It is a premium feature in the app, but if you do not have the premium features unlocked, you still will see the location of tropical storms and hurricanes on the app. But along with the ability to turn on the cone there. You can look back at historical hurricanes, and you will also see areas of interest marked by the National Hurricane Center, which is really cool to see. Not to mention we can tap on Elsa there and get some more information on the storm. So right now, the sustained winds at 63 miles per hour. Again, we need those winds to be up at about 74 miles per hour for it to be a Category 1 hurricane. As of right now, and we will see an updates here coming out of the NHC over the next hour or so, whether or not it will regain that Category 1 hurricane status, although it is unexpected at this point. It is not likely to happen. So it is at this point, though, likely to continue to stay right around this 63 mile per hour range up until it makes landfall, staying as a tropical storm all the way into tomorrow morning as it moves over Georgia and South Carolina, remaining that way as it continues to track over North Carolina as we work our way into tomorrow evening, and then working its way all the way up the North Atlantic, or rather the northeastern seaboard, passing over Delaware and Maryland, the Delmarva Peninsula there, into the early morning hours of Friday, and continuing to track its way as a tropical storm all the way up past Long Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and all the way up to Nova Scotia. So it's certainly looking likely that it will hug the coastline here, but bear in mind that cone is not an exact idea of where the storm will be. It's just meant to show you what the possibilities are. And of course, flooding and heavy rain going to be a major factor, especially for the low country of South Carolina as we work our way into tomorrow and toward the back end of the work week. But zooming back in here on Florida, you can see those blue boxes. If you go to the layers menu here and scroll down, you'll see power outages. That is a brand new feature to the MyRadar app here, and I have them toggled on, so we'll be able to tap on this. These power outages are new as of this morning, and it's certainly a good idea for the future, if you do live in a hurricane-prone area, to have a way to charge your electronic devices. I put it in my backpack. I should have had it here for the start of the storm, or start of coverage here. Stand by. Let me see if I can find it. Forgot which pocket I put it in. But it is a power bank that you can use to charge your devices. Here it is. I mentioned this pretty much in every single one of our live streams here. One of these guys. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but I can plug USB devices. Can you see right there? You can plug USB devices right into this thing. I think this particular one that I have will charge a cell phone 6 or 7 times over, which is great, especially if you do lose power. You do have the ability. Highly recommend one of these. And especially if you look back at the app here, if you are to lose power. Right now in Levy County, you can see roughly, at this point, 223 customers. So a very low number, 1.3% of the total customers. Again, in this brand new feature, you'll be able to see the number of customers that are tracked, meaning how many customers are in those areas for these utility companies: Central Florida Electric Cooperative, Clay Electric Co-op, Duke Energy, and SECO. We jump up here to Gilchrist County. You can see there are some power outages there. A very minimal number of them, 412. And then here for Dixie County, if it loads there, 336. So still less than 1,000 customers without power. Of course, we'd rather that be zero. But nonetheless, these are some pretty strong bands coming in. In fact, Damien, if you can jump back to that camera, the WeatherStem camera in Cedar Key, it was earlier this morning that a 56 mile per hour wind gust was reported there at Cedar Key. So let's take that. This is the Cedar Key fire and rescue camera. You can kind of see the camera bouncing in the breeze a little bit there. I mean, look at the trees at the bottom of the camera. Bear in mind, storm surge is well expected in this area to be several feet. And that's certainly not safe at all to be out in. So I would imagine the people that live in this area are well equipped to deal with that. Although remember, the west coast of Florida is not really where you would expect to see a landfall from a tropical storm or a hurricane. Typically, it's South Florida and the East Coast that deals with it more often than not. But nonetheless, again, there, looking at that WeatherStem camera, 56 mile per hour wind gust reported not too long ago in Cedar Key, Florida. All right, Damien, let's jump over to the graphics here that I have prepared. And again, I see the comments coming in from people. Thank you very much for joining us early this morning. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And if you you have any questions for me, I will answer them as I get a little bit more into the stream here. I should also mention that meteorologist Jamie Martin, a native Floridian, will be in later this morning, and then Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson, who was working fairly late last night into the early morning hours of today. It's Wednesday. I'm losing track of what day it is. She will be in a little bit later as well to kick off our team coverage. Another native Floridian. So we've got the best in the business, and they will be coming in here in just a couple of hours. But for right now, you've got me. Let's jump into the tropical infrared imagery here. This is, of course, satellite imagery, and this goes to show you kind of like what I talked about before. Let me grab my pointer tool here so you can really see. Again, you can see that this is kind of the general convection happening right now in Elsa. It's kind of a mess. I mean, it was kind of organizing very quickly yesterday, might I add, that kind of got ahead of schedule a little bit to the point where the National Hurricane Center was upgrading the projected path to a Category 1 hurricane well ahead of schedule. But it is now, of course, back to a tropical storm with those sustained winds at around 63 miles per hour, so a good 10 miles per hour short of hurricane Category 1 classification. But you can see the convection right here over central Florida, and then, of course, closer to the center of circulation right here near Cedar Key and Horseshoe Beach. I should mention as well a tornado watch in effect for central Florida until 8 o'clock this morning, so another 45 minutes to go. And look at this. I mean, you can kind of see as to why here on satellite imagery. Just look at how those overshooting tops from these thunderstorms are happening from about the Naples, Florida, Marco Island, Florida area off toward the northeast, kind of in this general direction here, across central Florida up toward the Space Coast, which is Cape Canaveral right up in here, and then Orlando, where we are located, somewhere in here. So we will definitely be watching out for some pretty nasty weather across central Florida. But right now, of course, the center of circulation is up and near the Horseshoe Beach, Cedar Key area. Earlier this morning, some heavy rain bands passing over top of the Tampa-St. Pete area, although you can see that the bulk of the precipitation is starting to give way a little bit. But again, that center of circulation is somewhat up here in Elsa. So it's kind of a mess. I mean, it really only has one half, right? It's got the eastern half of the storm here, but look at the western half of Elsa. It's seemingly empty, right? It's not exactly a very pretty storm to look at here, with the bulk of the precipitation off here in this rain band that's coming in off the inflow here across central Florida. Again, we're located right here in Orlando, Florida. I can tell you my drive in this morning, it was pretty messy. Let's keep advancing a little bit here. Again, we are dealing with right now tropical storm warnings from Tampa all the way northward here. I'm going to grab my tool. You'll be able to see all the way now into South and North Carolina, all the way up into the east coast of Virginia, all the way up into Maryland and Delaware. So it is certainly looking likely that it is going to hug the coastline here, but we are also dealing with this little stretch of land right here, Cedar Key, Horseshoe Beach, part of this. This is a hurricane watch. This is just in place to kind of get you into the mindset, because it is certainly possible we may see some strengthening early this morning from Elsa. It doesn't seem somewhat likely this morning, but this watch is up just in case, and this is where we will potentially see the worst storm surge as Elsa pushes up the coastline here and on shore. So we will be watching very closely to see what happens there. A look now at the water vapor imagery. You can see that there is some drier air around Elsa here. It's not super dry, but the environment in which Elsa is operating in here is not exactly perfect. There's not too much wind shear, although you can see coming in from right here. Let me grab my tool here. Stand by. Right here. So you can see that we have the wind coming in from this direction here. In fact, let me pop an arrowhead onto... Oops. I'm trying to... What is... The program does not want to work with me this morning. I am trying to... I can barely see. Is that it? There it is. Okay. So you can see that we have some winds coming in from the west, right? There was a stationary front sitting over Florida yesterday that will begin to give way here at some point. But you can see that there is some shear coming in from the west that is kind of working to kind of take the top off of Elsa a little bit here as it works its way over the border of Georgia and North Florida. So we will continue to watch that. Aha, I think, yeah, there we go. You guys can't see it. I figured something out here on the back end of this system. Let's take a look at the sea surface temperatures, which are quite warm. Bear in mind, it is going to get considerably warmer here as we work our way into the real meat of summer. But right now, 84 degrees just off the coast of Tampa, Florida there, which is pretty warm. You compare that to the Atlantic, 80-degree water off of the coastline there of Cape Canaveral on the Space Coast. 4 degrees when you're talking about water temperature is pretty big. And if you've ever been to the west coast of Florida or even to the panhandle of Florida, the Gulf of Mexico is much, much warmer than the Atlantic. Some people even compare it to say it's about as tepid as a bathtub compared to the Atlantic Ocean. Which is still warm, bear in mind. It's certainly warmer than the Pacific Ocean, but the Gulf of Mexico is definitely where you're going to find the warmest water along the southern coastline of the United States here. Now let's move over to, I'm pressing the wrong button, there we go. Let's move over to the tropical tracker here over the next 5 days. By this afternoon, you can see Elsa's kind of hustling here. By this afternoon, sustained winds at a roughly 60 miles per hour as it pushes over Georgia and Florida, bringing with it, again, those heavy rain bands. Completing its journey over Georgia by early Thursday morning and into Thursday afternoon, weakening to around 40 miles per hour, still a tropical storm at that point. Moving over South Carolina, notice the track is a lot more inland now than it was yesterday, where it was expected to kind of hug the coast. Bear in mind, with the way these storms rotate counterclockwise, it will still bring the storm surge as well as the heavy rain here, especially to the coastline, even though you're not in the cone. So definitely something to watch out for. Passing over inland North Carolina, that being the Charlotte area, and pushing northward in Norfolk, Virginia, as we work our way into Thursday evening and into early morning Friday over the Delmarva Peninsula and possibly over southern New Jersey. Philadelphia is just barely in the cone there. And then as we look here out toward this upcoming weekend, pushing up toward Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and into even coastal Maine. At that point, weakening to a tropical depression. And then you can see it kind of completes its journey well north of Canada there later this weekend. Now, again, the storm surge, definitely something that we need to pay close attention to. Possible surge of roughly 3 to 5 feet, and that stretches from Bonita Springs all the way up to Horseshoe Beach. That's the storm surge watch, but a storm surge warning, if I grab my tool here, is right here. This darker magenta color from Horseshoe Beach, kind of right up and into the Gulf Coast. Right there is pretty much where landfall is anticipated for Elsa here in the next couple of hours. So even though we are done with the big impact from Elsa across South Florida, it certainly is still possible as those winds rush in from the southwest that we see storm surge upwards of 2 to 4 feet from South Florida all the way up through the Naples area, through Port Charlotte, and up into Tampa, where we see the storm surge upwards of 3 to 5 feet. That will also be pretty close to what we'll see near the Cedar Key area, but then 2 to 3 feet all the way out close to Panama City Beach. But then notice South Carolina, Georgia, that includes Hilton Head Island, just barely up and into Charleston, and even Savannah, Georgia, 1 to 2 feet of storm surge anticipated for those areas. So let's look at a computer model here to get a good idea as to what Elsa will do next year. I'll stop it here just short of lunchtime here. This is 11 a.m., and you can kind of see it's trying to spit out an eye there. It's just messy right now, folks, whether or not that's even going to happen. But nonetheless, you can still see, if I grab my pointer tool here. Of course, I can't because it's, there we go. All right, you can see all these bands that are coming in, right? These could potentially be some stronger thunderstorms and some heavy downpours stretching from Brevard County, Florida, all the way northward into Duval County, Jacksonville. But here you can see those inflow bands up near Cedar Key and just north of Tampa. These are going to be some pretty nasty storms, so definitely something to keep an eye out on here. And as we've talked about many times, when you're dividing a tropical system into 4 quadrants, The right front quadrant is where you are most often going to find tornadic development. So that is something to key in on here. That is why there is a tornado watch in effect right now for this area of Florida, Central Florida, where we are right now in Orlando, because, again, of being in that right front quadrant. Let's advance a little bit more, making landfall just short of lunchtime. You can kind of see it's really trying to tighten up at that point. It's kind of last ditch over the very warm Gulf of Mexico. Remember, these storms want to be over warm water. By 3:30 later this afternoon, kind of sitting right on the border there of Florida and Georgia, and continuing to advance into this evening, losing kind of that overall shape, but you can still see those outer bands here, and that is, notice why we will see the storm surge kind of right where that X is, because you do at this point, even though the center of circulation is inland over Georgia at this point, you're still getting that flow coming in right there. So that is why that storm surge is anticipated to be roughly 1 to 2 feet. And remember, this coast right here, South Carolina and Georgia, they don't call it the low country for a reason. It is quite low in terms of the elevation. So the inland flooding, the coastal flooding, definitely something to watch out for if you live in that area. Notice, did you see that? Let me bring it back. See that? How it's overland, Elsa, at that point, but as it works its way along the coastline, despite the cone being west, it is really going to try to hug that coast. Remember, it wants to be over water, does not want to be over land. So it's going to try its hardest to get back here to the coast. And notice as well, you have that big shield of precipitation sitting over the South Carolina-Georgia border, closer to the coastline there. So again, storm surge at this point, 1 to 2 feet, as well as the heavy rain happening here over inland South Carolina, but of course rushing toward the lower elevations that way. Let's keep advancing. By Thursday morning, at that point, kind of completing its journey over South Carolina and pushing over inland North Carolina, although again, look at that inflow here. Could very well be some storm surge pushing northward in North Carolina at that point. And then joins up with a cold front up here to make for just a messy, messy day across the northeastern corridor for Friday and into the weekend, from all the way near Montreal, Canada, down into New England, and then we have rain all the way here. So a messy end to the work week because of Elsa right here, and then we've got this cold front right up in here. So let's keep advancing. Speaking of rain, over the next 3 days, it's going to be a lot from where Elsa makes landfall, roughly 5 to 7 inches of rain, and then about 3 to 5 inches of estimated rainfall pushing through central South Carolina, up and into North Carolina, and right up and into and along the Delmarva Peninsula there for Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. And again, it is definitely the rain, the storm surge that we will be keying in on very closely here over these next couple of days that could make for life-threatening conditions for people that live on the coast. In terms of the arrival of tropical storm force winds, I mean, we're already feeling it this morning. Again, 56-mile-per-hour winds recorded at that weather stem camera that we showed you not too long ago. But if we advance this out a little bit more, you can see as we work our way into Wednesday evening, that's when those 30 to 40-mile-per-hour winds begin to push into Duval County and Jacksonville, and even into Savannah, Georgia at that point. Continuing to advance this out as we work our way toward the back end of the work week, the wind threat kind of is lessened a little bit at that point. But again, heavy rain, storm surge, definitely what we'll be watching for pretty closely here. So let's jump back to the tropical infrared imagery. In fact, Damien here, if you want to jump to the MyRadar app, we're going to take a look at one more thing before I look at any of your questions that have come in across the chat. I see them. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We're going to take a look now at the MyRadar app here, and I'm going to show you another premium feature. It looks like we lost the mirroring here. Let me connect back, Damien. Seems like it's having an issue here. I think I might have lost you over the IFB as well. Let me log out and log back in. There we go. All right, I think I'm connected here on the app. Yep, I think we're good to go. All right, so we're looking at the MyRadar app here. I'm going to tap on the layers menu here, and we're going to go to the per station radar. This is yet another premium feature in the app, and this enables you to be able to look at reflectivity, precipitation, as well as storm velocity. So that's going to show us directions of wind, and that is going to give us a good idea whether or not there's any rotation present. So I'm going to pick this radar site here. We're going to take a look at the reflectivity. So this gives you a really interesting look at what is going on weather-wise. In fact, right now I've got the reflectivity selected from that radar site here near Tampa, St. Pete. But let's take a look here at the storm relative velocity. Not seeing anything there. Let's jump to the Melbourne site here. Green, of course, representing winds going toward the radar. Red representing winds going away from it. And when you start to see kind of a blend of the two, just nothing's really jumping out at me just yet, which is good. Again, we certainly don't really want to be dealing with that early this morning. But this is going to be able to give us a good look whether or not we are seeing any tornadic development from Elsa early this morning across central Florida. Nothing so much yet. But again, with the per station radar feature, you can get a really hyper-local look at what is going on weather-wise. You can jump from radar site to radar site, whereas the high-def radar, which is still fantastic, is more of a blend of everything. It's certainly not necessary to have this feature, although it is pretty nice to have. We're going to zoom back out here, and we will see Elsa as a whole. Kind of a messy storm this morning. All right, time for your questions early this morning. Damien, you still have me over the IFB? I had to log out there for a second, but you should be able to hear me. All right, cool. I can hear you now. All right, so let's take a look at some of the chat here. Thank you very much again for joining us early this morning. I know it is very early, short of 8 a.m. We've got Carol in Live Oak. What's going on? Myra in North Carolina. Pablo in Ocala. What else we have here? We've got someone watching up in Maryland, Nehemiah. So she says, I'm from Maryland, and I don't want that storm to hit my area. Depending on where that is, I'm unsure exactly where you are in Maryland there. Although, if you do live closer to the coastline, particularly like the Ocean City, Maryland area, again, coastal Delaware, a tiny state to begin with, it's going to be messy, certainly, as we work our way toward the back end of the work week. Eric in Charleston, one of the most underrated food cities in America. Of course, South Carolina. You're no longer in the cone, bear in mind, in Charleston, but it's still likely to be rather messy in terms of the rain that is heading your way here in the back end of the work week. Possible storm surge, too. Definitely something to watch out for. We've got Milton watching in Nashville, Tennessee. Not too much impact from Elsa for you in Tennessee, although it certainly could be rainy here in the back end of the week. What else we got here? Savannah, Georgia. We've got someone watching in Jacksonville, Duval County. What else we got? Got a bunch of people watching in Maryland this morning. Again, we kind of just talked about that. Someone saying we'll go up the eastern coastline. That's correct. Someone, that person from Maryland saying, I'm afraid of tornadoes and hurricane outbreaks. So you're not going to get an outbreak of hurricanes. They, even though they are fairly large, I mean, that's kind of to that benefit. You're not going to get an outbreak of them. An outbreak would meaning it would be happening like that. These are large. They take plenty of time to get going. And, of course, Elsa right now, a tropical storm, but you're just not going to see them develop in quick succession like that. We're in the end times if that is happening. Tornado outbreaks certainly possible, but at that point, it's not like, again, they're going to be fast and furious. Certainly possible, but it's definitely something to look out for. Joe says, this is cool. You make it like a regular TV channel. Well, Joe, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. What else we have here? Got someone watching up in Rhode Island, another very underrated state, I guess Providence in and of itself, an underrated food city in America. If you are a seafood lover, gotta love what's going on up there in New England. James, could be messy for you as you head into Friday and into the upcoming weekend in terms of the rain and the potential for inland flooding there. Elsa's got a lot of moisture. Let's see what we got here. Got someone watching from Texas. What's going on? Another person in Canada. Shout out to our neighbors from the north. Shout out to poutine. I don't know. I guess I'm hungry this morning. I know Damien in the back there. I mean, he's a big food lover too. So big shout out to poutine and Canada. We love it. Someone watching in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. Again, North Carolina could be dealing with some impacts, particularly through the Charlotte area as we work our way into Friday. That's where things could get rather messy in terms of the inland flooding and the heavy rain. And it certainly could be possessing some stronger wind gusts at that time. But again, this is one of the first storms here to make landfall this season. We're still very young in the season, might I add. July 7th. I mean, we're not even in really the thick of it here. Shout out to that meme that's all over TikTok right now. We're not even in the thick of it yet, folks, in terms of hurricane season. We've got plenty of time to go here. But Florida, which was seemingly spared from an impact last year, the most active season in history, is starting off the season with a landfall from a tropical storm right now. So let me switch over to the radar. Again, the circulation center of it still off the coast there, but landfall expected here within the next couple of hours. And like I mentioned, meteorologist Jamie Martin will be coming in later this morning, as will Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson, to give you the latest on what is happening with Elsa. We got someone saying, I'm supposed to get a package Thursday from Florida. I should still get it by tomorrow. You should take that up with the logistics company that's going to be delivering that package. I'm unsure of that, although it's certainly possible that weather could delay your shipment. Although, hey, the Postal Service, for as many headaches as they may cause, rain, sleet, snow, shine, right? They'll try. So I'm not sure if it is the Postal Service. But anyway, I've been going on here for a good little while this morning. That'll probably wrap it up for our live stream. Remember, of course, that you can follow us across our various social media platforms. You can see them above my head here: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're live streaming on Twitch right now as well, twitch.tv/MyRadarWX. We would really appreciate you to subscribe to us there as well. It costs you nothing to subscribe to us. If you are watching on YouTube, click on that subscribe button and click on the thumbs up, that like button. We really appreciate it. It helps our channel grow. We recently hit 100,000 subscribers. You can't see the plaque, but it's up behind me there on the fast forecast set. It's an incredible accomplishment that we are very proud of here, and we can't thank you guys enough for helping us reach that milestone. Of course, we're doing giveaways all the time. We just did our smartphone giveaways. We gave away 3 of them as we plowed right on through 100,000 subscribers. So we have plenty of cool new stuff to give away all the time. I should also mention that the MyRadar beta program just launched. It's the first time we've ever done anything like this. MyRadar.com/beta. Again, MyRadar.com/beta, B-E-T-A. And you can be one of the first people on either iOS or Android to test brand new features in the MyRadar app. We have so much cool stuff happening behind the scenes. I can't help but smile because I just know, particularly this one feature that has been so widely requested. I cannot wait to show it to you guys. It should be here soon, but if you want to be one of the first people to get a look at it, to test it, and give our developers feedback, that also costs you nothing, and we will follow up with instructions on how to install the beta version of the app. It's very easy to do. You don't need to know coding or be a developer in order to do that. We really just want to know your feedback. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Is it working for you? Is it not working for you? Again, myradar.com/beta. Damien, I'm trying to think if there's any other housekeeping here to get to. Of course, the MyRadar store, store.myradar.com. You can also go to myradar.com/store. Use the promo code SUMMER10, SUMMER10, to save 10% off your entire order. A portion of the proceeds, of course, goes to Feeding America, which is a nonprofit organization which assists communities affected by natural disasters, giving them food, medical supplies, everything that they'll need after a natural disaster. I think that's about it. We've hit the store, the beta program. I've hit the social media channels. I think that's probably it, Damien. So that's going to do it for me here this morning on this live stream. But again, we will be coming at you live here over the next couple of hours as we are watching Elsa make landfall. It's well on its way to the western coastline of Florida. From all of us here on the team, from Damien in the back, please out there, stay safe and stay dry. We'll catch you back here soon. See ya.